Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I welcome all my students to today's lecture of GIT regarding stomach. Now today we are going to learn about what are the different functions of stomach, how it functions, what are the different digestive processes which go on inside the stomach, what are the different hormones released, what are the chemicals which are being released, and what is its innervation, and what can be the pathophysiology related to it. So we are going to learn it stepwise. The first one is regarding the motor functions of the stomach. Now the motor functions of the stomach, they are threefold. Now as it is quite large in size, so the first or the foremost duty is actually the storage of large amount of food until the food can be processed inside the stomach, duodenum and lower intestinal tract. Number two is the process of mixing of food with that of gastric secretions until it forms a semi-fluid mixture known as chyme. Then its function is actually the slow emptying of this semi-fluid mixture chyme from stomach into the small intestine at a rate which is suitable for proper digestion and absorption by the small intestine. So, look at this diagram. You can see the anatomical picture of the stomach. It is a J-shaped organ having the continuation with that of the lower portion of esophagus. There is fundus, body, antrum, and then there is sphincter there, and later on it is going to continue in the form of duodenum. See the fundus, the lesser curvature, the greater curvature, the body of the stomach, and then the antrum. Now comes the storage function of stomach. Now as the food enters the stomach, it forms concentric circles of the food in the ordered portion of the stomach. The newest food is lying closest to the esophageal opening, and the oldest food is lying nearest the outer wall of the stomach, that is close to that of the pyloric end. Normally, when the food stretches the stomach, a vasovagal reflex from the stomach to the brainstem and then back to the stomach reduces the tone in the muscular wall of the body of the stomach so that the wall bulges progressively outward, accommodating greater and greater quantities of food up to a limit in the completely relaxed stomach of 0.8 to 1.5 liters. So, remember that the wall is going to bulge forward, outward, accommodating large amount of food up to the limit of about 0.8 to 1.5 liters. Mixing and propulsion of food in the stomach, basic electrical rhythm of the stomach wall. The digestive juices of the stomach, they are secreted by the gastric glands, which are present in almost the entire wall of the stomach body except along a narrow strip on the lesser curvature of the stomach. Now these secretions, they come immediately into contact with that portion of the stored food which is lying against the mucosal surface of the stomach. As long as food is in the stomach, the weak peristaltic constrictor waves called mixing waves begin in the mid to upper portion of the stomach wall and move toward the antrum about once every 15 to 20 seconds. These waves are initiated by the gut wall basic electrical rhythm. It consists of electrical slow waves that occur spontaneously in the stomach wall. Now, as the constrictor waves progress from the body of the stomach into the antrum, they become more intense, some becoming extremely intense and providing powerful peristaltic action potential driven constrictor rings which force the antral contents under higher and higher pressure towards the pylorus. These constrictor rings also they play an important role in the mixing the stomach contents in the vase like as follows. Each time a peristaltic wave passes down the antral wall towards the pylorus, it digs deeply into the food contents in the antrum. The opening of pylorus is still small enough that only a few millimeter or less of antral contents they are expelled into the duodenum with each peristaltic wave. Also, as each peristaltic wave approaches the pylorus, the pyloric muscle itself often contracts, which further impedes emptying through the pylorus. Most of the antral contents they are squeezed upstream through the peristaltic ring towards the body of the stomach, not through the pylorus. The moving peristaltic constrictor ring combined with this upstream squeezing action is known as retropulsion and is exceedingly important mixing mechanism in the stomach. So what is retropulsion? That is the movement of peristaltic constrictive ring along with the upstream squeezing action. Now let's talk about what is the chyme. Now after the food in the stomach has become thoroughly mixed with that of the stomach secretions, the resulting mixture that passes down the gut is known as chyme. The degree of fluidity of the chyme leaving the stomach depends on the relative amounts of food, water, and stomach secretions, and on the degree of digestion that has occurred. The appearance of chyme is that of a murky, semi-fluid, paste-like material. Hunger contractions. Besides the peristaltic contractions which occur when the food is present in the stomach, another type of intense contractions known as hunger contractions often occurs when the stomach has been empty for several hours or more. Now these are actually the rhythmical peristaltic contractions in the body of the stomach. When the successive contractions become extremely strong, they often fuse to cause a continuing tetanic contraction that sometimes lasts for 2 to 3 minutes. Hunger contractions, they are most intense in young, healthy people who have high degree of gastrointestinal tone or tonus. They are also greatly increased by persons having lower than normal levels of blood sugar. When hunger contractions occur in the stomach, the person sometimes experiences mild pain in the pit of the stomach, and that is known as hunger pangs. Hunger pangs usually do not begin until there is 12 to 24 hours after the last ingestion of food. In starvation, they are going to reach the highest or the greatest intensity in about 3 to 4 days' time, and gradually it is going to weaken in succeeding days. Stomach emptying. Stomach emptying is promoted by intense peristaltic contractions in the stomach antrum. At the same time, emptying is opposed by varying degrees of resistance to passage of chyme at the pylorus. Intense enteral peristaltic contractions during stomach emptying or pyloric pump. For about 20% of time while food is in the stomach, the contractions they become intense, beginning in the mid-stomach and spreading through the caudal stomach or the lower portion of the stomach. These contractions, they are strong, peristaltic, very tight, ring-like constrictions that can cause stomach emptying. See, as the stomach becomes progressively more and more empty, these constrictions they begin further and further up the body of the stomach, gradually pinching off the food in the body of the stomach and adding this food to the chyme in the antrum. These intense peristaltic contractions they often create 50 to 70 centimeters of water pressure, which is about 6 times as powerful as the usual mixing type of peristaltic waves. When the pyloric tone is normal, each strong peristaltic wave forces up to several milliliters of chyme into the duodenum. Thus, the peristaltic waves, in addition to causing mixing in the stomach, also provide a pumping action which is known as pyloric pump. Now, what is the role of pylorus? Pylorus has the role in controlling the stomach emptying. The distal opening of stomach is known as pylorus. Here, the thickness of the circular wall muscle becomes 50 to 100% greater than in the earlier portions of the stomach antrum, and it remains slightly tonically contracted almost all the time. Therefore, the pyloric circular muscle is called the pyloric sphincter. Despite the normal tonic contraction of pyloric sphincter, the pylorus usually is open enough for water and other fluids to empty from the stomach into the duodenum with ease. Conversely, the constriction usually prevents passage of food particles until they have become mixed in the chyme to almost fluid consistency. Now, how it is regulated, how this whole process of stomach functioning that is regulated, especially the stomach emptying. The rate at which the stomach empties is being regulated by signals from both the stomach and the duodenum. The duodenum provides by far the more potent of the signals controlling the emptying of chyme into the duodenum at a rate no greater than the rate at which the chyme can be digested and absorbed in the small intestine. Gastric factors which promote emptying. Effect of gastric food volume on rate of emptying. Increased food volume in the stomach promotes increased emptying from the stomach. It is not increased storage pressure of the food in the stomach that causes the increased emptying, because in the usual normal range of volume, the increase in volume does not increase the pressure much. However, stretching of the stomach wall does elicit local myenteric reflexes in the wall that greatly accentuate the activity of pyloric pump and at the same time inhibits the pylorus. Now, there is an hormone known as gastrin which has effect on the stomach emptying as well. Now, the stomach wall stretch and presence of certain types of food in the stomach, particularly digestive products of meat, they do elicit the release of a hormone gastrin from the enteral mucosa. This has potent effects to cause secretion of highly acidic gastric juice by the stomach glands. Gastrin also has mild to moderate stimulatory effects on the motor functions in the body of stomach. Most important, it seems to enhance the activity of the pyloric pump. Gastrin also promotes stomach emptying. Powerful duodenal factors that inhibit stomach emptying. Inhibitory effect of enterogastric nervous reflexes from the duodenum. When the food enters the duodenum, multiple nervous reflexes are initiated from the duodenal wall. They pass back to stomach to slow or even stop. Stomach emptying if the volume of chyme in the duodenum becomes too much. These reflexes are mediated by three routes. First is directly from duodenum to stomach through the enteric nervous system in the gut wall. Number 2, via extrinsic nerves that go to prevertebral sympathetic ganglia and then back through the inhibitory sympathetic nerve fibers to the stomach, probably to a slight extent through the vagus nerves all the way to the brainstem where they inhibit the normal excitatory signals transmitted to the stomach through the vagi. All these parallel reflexes, they have two effects on stomach emptying. First, they strongly inhibit the pyloric pump propulsive contractions. Second, they increase the tone of pyloric sphincter. Now, the type of factors which are continually monitored in the duodenum and that can initiate the enterogastric inhibitory reflexes, they are like the degree of distension of duodenum, the presence of any degree of irritation in duodenal mucosa, the degree of acidity, the degree of osmolality, the presence of certain breakdown products in the chyme, especially the breakdown products of protein and to a lesser extent of fats. They are going to initiate the enterogastric inhibitory reflexes. For instance, when the pH of the chyme in the duodenum is going to fall below 3.5 to 4, the reflexes frequently they are going to block the further release of acidic stomach contents into the duodenum until the duodenal chyme can be neutralized by the pancreatic and other secretions. Breakdown products of protein digestion also elicit inhibitory enterogastric reflexes by slowing the rate of stomach emptying. Sufficient time is ensured for adequate protein digestion in the duodenum and small intestine. Finally, either hypotonic or hypertonic fluids elicit the inhibitory reflexes. Hormonal feedback from the duodenum inhibits the gastric emptying, the role of fats and hormone cholecystokinin. Not only do the nervous reflexes from the duodenum to the stomach, they inhibit the stomach emptying, but hormones released from the upper intestine do so as well. The stimulus for releasing these inhibitory hormones is mainly fats entering the duodenum. On entering the duodenum, the fats extract several different hormones from duodenal and jejunal epithelium, either by binding with receptors on the epithelial cells. In turn, the hormones are carried by way of blood to the stomach, where they inhibit the pyloric pump and at the same time increase the strength of contraction of pyloric sphincter. The most potent appears to be cholecystokinin, which is released from the mucosa of the jejunum in response to fatty substances in the chyme, and this is going to act as an inhibitor to block increased stomach motility caused by gastrin. Now, other possible inhibitors of stomach emptying, they are secretin, gastric inhibitory peptide, glucose-dependent insulinotropic peptide. Secretin is released mainly from the duodenal mucosa in response to gastric acid passed from the stomach through the pylorus. GIP has a general but weak effect of decreasing GIT motility. GIP is released from the upper small intestine in response mainly to fat in the chyme, but to a lesser extent to carbohydrates as well. Although GIP inhibits gastric motility, under some conditions. Its main effect at physiological contractions is probably mainly to stimulate the secretion of insulin by the pancreas. In summary, hormones, especially CCK, can inhibit gastric emptying when excess quantities of chyme, especially acidic or fatty chyme, enter the duodenum from the stomach. Now, the summary of control of stomach emptying. The emptying of stomach is controlled only to a moderate degree by stomach factors such as degree of filling and the excitatory effect of gastrin on stomach peristalsis, and the more important control, that is the inhibitory feedback signals from the duodenum, is there because it is having enterogastric inhibitory nervous feedback reflexes and hormonal feedback by cholecystokinin. These feedback inhibitory mechanisms, they work together to slow the rate of emptying when too much chyme is already in the small intestine. The chyme is excessively acidic, containing too much unprocessed protein or fat, is hypotonic or hypertonic, or is irritating. In this way, the rate of stomach emptying is limited to that amount that the small intestine can process. Now let's see one of the examples related to MCQ portion of your university exam. That is, the motor function of stomach includes the storage of large quantity of food. Food can be processed, mixing, slow, and all of above. So the answer is in front of you. So same is over here, same is over here. So this is all about today's lecture. So stay blessed and Allah Hafiz.